Lads, we're back.
We are.
Yeah.
Dude,
Still here.
it's a good day, guys. I'm really excited for today's show.
Yes, because we have a special guest.
We do. Welcome to the show. Lara Kuipers, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we were a bit hesitant there because I was absolutely terrified I wasn't going to say your name right.
And you nailed it.
Perfect. We're off to a great start here. Lara, for anyone who doesn't know who you are, what you're about, just let us know, what do you cover? What do you love in the sport world? Go ahead.
Okay, so recently finished Ryerson journalism.
Woo.
And I mainly cover golf. I'm a freelance golf writer right now. I've written for Golf Canada, Golf Talk Canada, and PGA of Canada. I also follow F1 quite a bit. So I have my own blog where I write like F1 post-race recaps. And then I also follow hockey. I grew up playing hockey my whole life. I have worked in hockey my whole life. So yeah, mainly those three sports are kind of what I follow. And yeah.
And we'll cover them all today. Just out of curiosity, what position did you play in hockey?
I was a goalie.
I love it.
Awesome.
I love
Yes.
it. Excellent news. A secret member of the goalie society then.
Yeah, I'm only 5 feet tall too. So
It's all right. I mean, we all love Dustin Tokarski. He was a shorter goalie.
Ishi Saros.
And he got it.
Saros, yeah. I'm pretty sure Yaroslav Askarov's a shorter goalie. So listen, we love all goalies equally here. So it's really up to you here. So we're going to talk about exactly the golf. We're going to talk about F1. Looking at the North Division and some spotlight on the Habs. We love to see it. Where would you like to start? It's completely open field here. Wherever you want to start here, we're good to go.
Oh, I don't know. It's a tough question. Why don't we start with hockey?
Okay, perfect. Okay. Then would you like to start with the Habs?
Of course.
This way, when Daniel first told us about you, Lara, and was like, he's a Habs fan, I was like, sweet. I think at the time they had just come back from maybe their COVID pause and they had won a few games and were like, they're finally going to get their act together. And then the last few games have just been like, I feel like now it's going to be almost like it's a relief to talk about this team, like just how rough it's been. So turning the clock back a bit, going into the season, after all those signings to Foley, Anderson, all that, Jake Allen, what were your expectations then for the Habs?
I honestly thought it was going to be a battle for first between Toronto and Montreal. Mm-hmm. I really like Suzuki, and Suzuki probably was our best player during the playoffs the season before. So I was really happy for Suzuki, Kotkaniemi to really build off of how they had performed in 2020. Mm-hmm. And Toffoli was a great ad because he's clearly a goal scorer, and that's been Montreal's struggle for, I feel like, as long as I've been a fan of them. And even with Max Domi and Josh Anderson, initially I was upset because I was a pretty big Max Domi fan. I thought he was a great sort of face for the team. I thought he was going to be like a franchise player sort of thing. But when I looked into Josh Anderson, who I was not familiar with, I actually thought he was going to be a great ad because we were lacking size on the team and someone to be sort of an intimidating presence for other players when you have guys like Brendan Gallagher and Carey Price on your team who do need sort of more intimidating players. And then it just sort of fizzled out from there.
That is a very good way of describing it. There was a coaching change. There were a few coaching changes, actually. What you've seen so far, because I remember there was a stat where they were comparing like penalty kill record, like everything to Julien under Ducharme, and they were basically the same thing. So before going into some of the stuff like Caulfield, Price is unfortunately hurt again, Brendan Gallagher's injury, it just hurts talking about it. Do you believe in Dominic Ducharme as a head coach?
I don't know. I don't know yet. I Actually, I remember him from the World Juniors, and I quite liked him during the World Juniors. I thought he did a good job. But I also really liked Claude Julien, and honestly thought he was doing a pretty good job coaching Montreal. And I don't think he had enough time to sort of to give him a grade. So I'm not sure I'm ready yet to decide if I think Ducharme is doing better or worse than him, because I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of changes that actually needs to happen with the roster, because I don't know if Ducharme has enough to work with at this moment.
Would you happen to be talking about the defense by any chance?
A little, and just like there's a few different changes. I wish we had just a more offensive-minded team. There's like, I just feel like when you get a guy like Carey Price, you need to build the team knowing that he's going to be able to make those big saves where other goalies might not. And you can kind of take that to your advantage and get more offensive defensemen. And I feel like for a while there, they just built it around a very defensive team, like hoping that they'd win every game with Carey Price getting a shutout.
Yes. That's a very good way of describing it. I think everyone was kind of thinking, like, I remember a few years ago when everyone wanted Jake Gardiner. I think instead the move was Ben Sherrod. And then over the summer, let's see what they do. Joel Edmondson. I don't know about that, guys.
Well, it was a good choice you didn't get Jake Gardiner, though. I'm telling you that from personal experience.
The back injury definitely pulled him back there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like everyone has the same answer here, but what does Brendan Gallagher mean to you as a Habs fan?
For me, I think now, like, especially in the past few years, Brendan Gallagher has really, I feel like, stepped up his on-ice performance to a level that I think was like maybe 2018 season, 2018, 2019, where he played a lot better than I had anticipated. It was one of those years around that time. But I think Brendan Gallagher means more for actually team morale. I think watching Brendan Gallagher go out there, they could be down by 5 goals and he's still playing like they're down by 1 and they're still in it. And I imagine he also helps morale off ice too. I feel like he's just a very positive player. He tries really hard. Like, that's anyone who watches Gallagher play knows he plays full shifts. And I think I just really like the morale that I think he brings to the team.
You can definitely tell how since he's gone, and I think their winning percentage in the entirety time Brendan Gallagher has ever been hurt, I think it's like 4.42 or so. It's disgustingly terrible. How obvious is it watching them play lately that they are missing Brendan Gallagher? I think Ducharme said they need a bit of galley juice into everyone right now, because it feels like a lot of the nights lately they've been outworked.
Oh yeah. I think it was it last night that they played Edmonton? I'm losing track of time.
It was 2 nights ago. We all want to forget that third period. I understand.
Yeah. I feel like, I don't know if they need to be doing like more skating drills in practice, but I feel like they come out hot in the first period. They play good, fast-paced hockey, and then they just, as the game goes on, they sort of just lose momentum. And yeah, I don't know if that's because they need Gallagher or what, but I even noticed with when the Leafs were missing Matthews, I felt like it was kind of the same thing. They felt like they were kind of like they didn't know what to do without that presence on the ice.
It's fair. I think anytime someone says that Gallagher is the heartbeat of the team, I feel like people actually really, really get that he actually is now when he does go down. Like, I remember his first wrist injury. I think it was 15-16 or 14-15. It was bad. I think it was 15-16 because I think it was the year Price missed. And that whole time he was just like, it was after Carey got hurt. I think it was in November, and then onwards Gallagher went down too. and they just fell apart. And speaking of Carey Price being hurt, I think we all hope that they stop playing the Oilers because the Oilers just keep hurting Carey Price, and it's getting a little much. Thoughts on, I guess, and I did see you tweet about Jake Allen came in relief in that game after the first period. It is a bit unfortunate, isn't it, that we saw that Price definitely took his time coming back after Josh Archibald hurt him, only to come back and it looked like Alex Chiasson had caught him in the head. I think he also caught a Draisaitl shot to the head towards the end of the first period too. That Price is, it's not his fault, but in the same breath, your thoughts on that they have Jake Allen and he's, the best backup they've had in how long, Lara?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this the other day. One, I read, I think it was Eric Engels, his article, and he was just talking about how I think it was him, he was wishing that when they do goalie interference reviews for whether or not it should be a good goal, that they should also look into like penalties and giving penalties for what happened, because like concussions are no joke. I just read I know Will is a friend of the podcast, Will Christopoulos' story on post-concussion symptoms. Mm-hmm. And I wish there was more we could do because it sucks seeing guys like Carey Price sidelined for concussions that it feels like could be prevented. But yeah, I love Carey Price. Carey Price is why I decided to be a goalie. He's why I decided to be a Habs fan. But it is interesting that I do feel like Jake Allen has been playing really well when we've needed him to. And now we have Caden Primo getting a chance probably coming up soon. And it'll be interesting to see how he plays because there's a lot you can get for Carey Price. And for a long time, people have said, oh, trade Carey Price. And I've said, no, like he's the face of that team. But I wouldn't, it's maybe like I don't know, it might just be not the way the team's going anymore.
Laura, don't talk about getting rid of him. Don't do that to me. It's really funny that you mentioned he's the reason you play goalie in your Habs fan because we had Will Baldwin. So many Wills in our program, eh? Oh, it's ridiculous. That's the same story for him. I think, he grew up, he the same as Carter Hart being a huge Price fan, and that's why he's a Habs fan too. It's funny how Price is like that. And last thing about the Habs, because we really want to talk the golf and the F1. How badly do you want to see Cole Caulfield play?
Oh my gosh. I saw your rant. I saw the clip, and I felt that. And now with Carey Price out and they're bringing Caden Primo up, I read that they probably don't have the space to now bring Caulfield up.
No, they do not.
Imagine. We've talked about for years on this podcast that Marc Bergevin needs to spend his cap space, and now we're at a point where he has no cap space left.
I think it's more frustrating that he went and got a bunch of defensemen at the deadline, knowing that he was going to have to save some for Caulfield. Anyway, so would you like to? Oh, wait, no, I forgot. Sorry, Alex, the North Division you wanted to talk about. Sorry.
Two questions for me about the North Division. Number one, how do you like the North Division? And would you want to see the North Division next year and the year after that?
Okay, so I actually have been enjoying the North Division. Think it's kind of just a breath of fresh air. It's something different. It's kind of fun. I think one thing that's really unique about the North Division compared to the other divisions is I've always found with Canadian teams, there's so much history between between all the teams in that division, whether it's fans related or whatnot. There's a lot of because they're all Canadian, there's just a lot of competition between them, even if they don't have history competition, there just inevitably is. And so one thing that I think is kind of different about the North Division is you can have a team like Vancouver beat a team like Toronto, not necessarily because Vancouver's better than Toronto, but it's just kind of how the Canadian teams work against each other. I feel like every time Montreal and Toronto goes to play each other, I have no clue who's going to win. It doesn't matter if Toronto's the way better team that year or Montreal is, because there's so much history between those two teams that there's so many other factors into how they play against each other. So I think that's kind of unique to the North Division that is kind of made it interesting, because I've like lost track of who's beaten who at this point, because it feels like it kind of makes no sense. And then the second question, I don't hope it stays. Just
really?
Because I honestly, I have not been keeping up with a lot of the American teams, just because I've been so focused on the North Division, and I do miss like Montreal playing Boston and winning and stuff like that. I do miss, I feel like there's a whole other side of the league that I'm kind of missing by not seeing teams play more teams. So yeah, but I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it for like 1 year, and then I hope it goes back to what it was.
Right. Daniel.
I guess like for our final question about the North Division, I have actually two. The first one is, who are your picks for making it out in the top 4 positions, and who you think's gonna, I guess, make the furthest push into the playoffs?
So definitely, like I think it's clearly going to be Toronto, Montreal, Winnipeg, Edmonton moving on, and then from there, I think it'll probably be Toronto, Winnipeg, and from there, I want to say it's going to be Winnipeg.
Oh,
I think Toronto's better, but I don't trust Toronto in the playoffs.
Oh.
Yeah, I also take Connor Hellebuck over any single goaltender this team has.
Yeah. Teaser for later on in the show when Alex screams about David Rich. Gonna be a good time.
I'm not gonna scream.
he's just disappointed.
I swear, Laura, we're not always screamy shouty. It's only once in a while. Only once in a while. Would you like to touch on the golf or F1?
Why don't we do golf?
Okay.
Go ahead, Dan. You got the golf.
Yeah. So I guess the first one is, can you talk to us about, because we always joke about this, we always just call him Wayne Gretzky's son-in-law. But can you tell us more about Dustin Johnson and like why he's so dominant right now?
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's like my like fact for anyone. Oh, like you don't watch golf? Well, did you know Wayne Gretzky's son-in-law is a golfer? Yeah. So Dustin Johnson I believe he's world number 1 right now. If not, it's sort of him, Justin Thomas, and John Rahm sort of swap places in the top 3 quite a bit. But Dustin Johnson has a really well-rounded game. And when he plays really well and is really tuned in, he's going to win the tournament. There's no question about it. It's just a matter of if he's fully tuned in. Last year, he went on a stretch where he repeatedly finished in the top 5, or I think it was like he swapped between like first, second, and third in a bunch of tournaments. He can hit it. He's one of the heavier hitters as far as driving goes, but he also has a good short game and he can make long putts when he needs to. So November, we had a unique Masters. Usually it's held in April like it was this year, but because of COVID, they held it in November. And a lot of people say it was an easier Masters because the conditions of the course were different, because it wasn't done in the spring and it was done closer to winter. But Dustin Johnson actually, I believe he won with a score of 20 under, which was the lowest Masters winning score. Which, if you think of all the people who've played in the Masters, that's quite the accomplishment, right? And a lot of people will say it's because of the course conditions and you'd never see it go that low again, but he still did go that low. And yeah, I think he's like 6'2" or something. He hits it really far and he has a great balance of hitting it far, but also being able to make putts when he needs to.
He was ahead by 5 the Masters he won, by the way. So just for people context. He was 5 ahead of Smith.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Smith is good, but I mean.
Oh, Smith is, and Smith has a mullet actually. That's been everybody's been talking. He's got great hair. But yeah, Cameron Smith, he's Australian, and he actually did pretty well at this year's Masters again. And there's a thing called the President's Cup in golf. It happens every other year. You might have heard of the Ryder Cup. The President's Cup is the same format, except it's Team USA versus the international team. And that features mostly like, I guess everybody outside of Europe. And Cameron Smith was on that last year, 2 years ago. I think it was 2019, so 2 years ago. And yeah, he's probably the top Australian golfer right now, or at least one of them.
Awesome. I guess like in terms of like recent highlights and everything, can you talk to me about like Hideki Matsuyama and just what he was been able to do? I know that like when we were watching it, and us as amateurs, we were like, oh, we were just looking at Twitter, and I think a lot of people were saying, oh, he wasn't having a really good, I guess, like round, and like, oh, what's gonna happen now, and like everything about his lead. So like, we'd like to hear your insight on that.
Yeah, so the Masters is always fun because the Masters website actually allows you to watch every single golf shot. So that whole weekend for 4 days straight, I had like multiple screens up watching it. And so, yeah, so Hideki basically won the tournament on the Saturday. He had good rounds Thursday, Friday, I believe, but he wasn't the leader. It was Justin Rose was leading after the first 2 rounds. But then he put in a basically perfect round on Saturday that gave him, I believe, a 5-shot lead as well, 5-4 something, or something along those lines, a big lead. And he actually ended up only winning by 1 stroke, so it kind of shows you, I think he might have actually shot 1 over as his final score, a 73, I believe, a 72 or a 73, depending on what the par was. But yeah, he basically, people were saying he did what he needed to do to win. He saved when he missed the fairway, he saved it. And there's a lot of pressure when you go into Sunday at the Masters leading, especially he was the first male golfer from Japan to win a major. So, and a lot of media personnel on Twitter would say that during normal times, Hideki Matsuyama has probably the most reporters asking him questions next to Tiger out of all the golfers. So he has a lot of media attention, which I think adds a lot of pressure going into that Sunday Masters. So he didn't play a great round, but he did what he needed to do.
I was watching, like very casually watching the Masters. By the way, I don't like how TSN cover it. There's like 4 different channels. It's like sometimes it's weird. But you know what? It felt like those last few holes, like Hideki and Xander, just I wasn't convinced either of them wanted. They just, those last few holes were brutal to watch. It was getting bad. Shall we? So explain to us, like layman's terms here, like the complete amateur know nothing about golf that we are. How does a normal season go down?
It's kind of complicated, but basically you have a normal season where you have a bunch of golf tournaments, and not every golfer will go into every tournament. If you're one of the top golfers, there's basically a priority list based on how well you're playing. So guys like Dustin Johnson, Hideki Matsuyama, they're going to be really high up on the priority list. They get to pick which tournaments they go into because they know if they say, hey, I want to get into this tournament, they're getting in. So you have to play a set amount of tournaments, but there's way more than you actually play in. So that's why it seems like golf's on every weekend. It's because it is, but not everybody's playing in every weekend. And then at the end, and basically you get points in the FedEx Cup standings for the PGA Tour based on how you do. And at the end of the season, they have the FedEx Cup playoffs, and it's a 3-tournament playoff. So the first tournament, I believe it's 120. Yeah, I think it's 120 players. If you're in the top 120 on the FedEx Cup standings, you get to play in this first tournament. And then after that tournament, the new standings, the top 70 get invited. And then after that tournament, the top 30 get invited. And that's the FedEx Cup, the final tournament. And if you're in that tournament, you automatically win a ton of money as like sort of like a congratulations for being in the top 30. And that's kind of a complicated format, the final one, because what they've done is basically they want to make it so if you are the first ranked player going into it, you have the best chance at winning. And so I believe it's like if you're the first ranked player going into it, you start at 10 under.
Okay.
And then they go down the list like that. So that way it stays as true. It's really complicated. They've changed it over the years too, to try and make it. Yeah, it's complicated, but that's basically the season.
So I think a buddy of mine the other day was telling me about the winnings in the FedEx Cup. And he sent me a picture, and I don't know how accurate this is, but maybe you can say 24th place wins at least $456,000. Second, $5 million. It's like showing, like making that last cut, as you say, $500,000.
Yeah, it's huge, and it's like their bonus. Like that's what it basically is, because they also, I believe the winner gets 10 million for like winning. And that's just it's your whole season, but it's in one weekend. Yeah. And then they just came out, I haven't read too much about it, but I believe the PGA Tour just announced they're doing a new bonus, and it's a 40 million like pot of money for like social engagement. It's for like the most popular player.
What? So this is going to be like, oh, that's okay.
I think they announced it yesterday. I haven't looked into it very much, but yeah.
They should do it in the NHL, so we just don't have to see Connor McDavid awkwardly standing there.
Oh,
and then maybe he'll do something. Maybe.
Yeah. No, it won't. Alex, go ahead.
Yeah. I want to talk about Drive to Survive, the last season they did, because we haven't talked about it on the podcast yet. I was wondering what you thought about it. And then how do you think the series as a whole has impacted F1's popularity?
Okay, yeah. I liked this new season. It's definitely probably my least favorite, but I still liked it. I think they missed out on a lot of exciting plots, probably biggest being George Russell driving in the Mercedes. I really wanted to see that. And it's definitely bumped like sort of up the engagement and the amount of fans. I think I read somewhere that the like Formula One Reddit went from like under 1 million to way more. So, yeah, I think it's definitely, I think North American fans are getting into Formula One now, just because I know for a long time I wasn't waking up at 8 a.m. to watch the races. There needed to be sort of some other reason that I was so into it that I wanted to wake up at 8 to watch it, as opposed to just catching the highlights later in the day on TSN. So I definitely think it's really added a bunch of new viewers.
Do you think there was actually tension between Lando and Carlos? Because I don't, and it really pissed me off.
Not a chance.
No, right? Okay, so it's not just me. It's like, I hated how they did that.
They did that with Danny Rick and Max in the first season too. Yes,
yeah, they did. I know Adam is going to ask about the championship. Before that, an even more interesting fight, well, maybe not more interesting, but the midfield, Ferrari versus McLaren, who will finish third? I mean, it might not be either of those teams, but I just threw those teams out there because they seem like the front runners at this point.
I definitely think it's going to be either McLaren or Ferrari. I think there's kind of, I don't want to say unique because there's been so many seasons, but unique to recent years where I don't even know if you could call McLaren and Ferrari best of the rest. There's kind of like top A and top B, and top A is Mercedes versus Red Bull, and then top B is McLaren versus Ferrari, and then there's the rest. And I honestly think Ferrari is going to finish on top. I think McLaren has the better car, but based off of the first two races, we've seen out of the four drivers between McLaren and Ferrari, Lando has been racing the best. But then Danny Rick has struggled in the McLaren, and he hasn't been coming all that close to Lando. It's definitely not a Red Bull situation, but he's still getting used to that car. And I feel like it might be like halfway through the season where Danny Rick finally starts to feel like he's got control of that McLaren. Whereas I think Carlos Sainz, being in a very similar position, he seems to have gotten really good control over that Ferrari already. I mean, I think was it in Bahrain that in Q2, he set the fastest lap, and he's matched Charles Leclerc really close at both races. So I think Ferrari just has a better both drivers, whereas McLaren, I think they have a good driver and a driver that's not struggling, but just not as high up there. So yeah.
I noticed that you have your blog Inside the Drive, and you actually wrote an article quickly about Carlos Sainz and how he was performing. So people, check that out. I mean, he looks a lot more comfortable than Seb did last year in that Ferrari, so we'll take it. It's interesting that you said the North American fans, because Alex got Daniel and I into Formula One. Like, I think last season was the first time we'd fully watched, and it was from Drive to Survive. And so we've gotten used to, like, you look back the past couple of years, and every time you watch a Grand Prix, it starts with it's lights out and away and Lewis Hamilton wins the Grand Prix. Insert name here. We know how it works. Valtteri's P2 and Max has not done anything because he's just been too far ahead. It's not been the case to start this season, though. It's been pretty close, Lara.
Yeah, it's been like exciting, yes. Definitely hopeful. There were quite a few races last year where my brother would have to miss it because he would have to work, and he'd come home and be like, is it worth watching it now? And I'd be like, yeah, but you could probably guess the podium. And it doesn't look like this year that's going to happen, which is exciting. I mean, Lewis Hamilton is clearly still one of the best drivers. I mean, even on Sunday, the way he was able to fight his way back up to a podium position, like, it shows he's a really good driver. But I think the Red Bull car has definitely stepped up their game, and they always had a driver capable of winning races in Max Verstappen, but now they also have a car that's allowing Max to, I guess, put in a better chance at winning, which is really exciting. I think even more fans will start watching now that we have sort of more competition, and the people who maybe don't get into it because they don't realize that the race is still exciting, even if Lewis Hamilton wins every race, they'll start getting into it because that's not the case anymore.
We talked a little bit about Imola earlier today. I think one of the biggest stories coming out of it, somehow even overshadowing how close the race at the top has been, I think at least, was the incident between George Russell and Valtteri Bottas. Who do you think was at blame for that crash?
Toto Wolff after the race said he thought it was a 60-40, and he wouldn't say for who, yes. But I think it was 60% George's fault and then I'd actually say more like 70% George and then 30% Bottas. I think George was trying to make the move, and Valtteri's ever so slight movement over, George interpreted as like a commitment to move over. And so as a result, George reacted as if Valtteri was continuously moving towards the right as opposed to just an ever so slight move.
Mhm.
And even George Russell put out an apology, I think yesterday or the day before, because I'm guessing he watched it and realized that Valtteri didn't really move into his line, and I definitely still had space. I'd have to go with George on that one.
Okay. It's, you know, plus like Imola's, it's such a time, like it's such a narrow track. You gotta be even more. What was like the best overtake last year was, I think it was, why can't I remember his name? The Russian, Kvyat. And it was like the only overtake of the entire race because it's just, you can't overtake there. Alex, Daniel. God, I am off my game. God damn it. Go ahead, Daniel.
No worries. So I remember for the Riconian, you wrote a lot about Nicholas Latifi. So I'd like to hear more about this year with both him and Lance Stroll about, I guess, in terms of bringing Canadian content on here. How do you expect their season to go, or how's it been going so far?
Yeah, I'll start with Latifi. I think Latifi actually had like a bit of a bad break last year, being the only rookie on the grid. So, and not only was he the only rookie on the grid, he was in by far the worst car. And so it felt like almost every race, Nicholas Latifi, with no one around him, was spinning the car. And well, I think he got a lot of hate of people. I mean, he has that pay driver title. And so with that mixed in with spinning and the Williams not being a great car, a lot of people were saying he wasn't a great driver. But I think now we're seeing with the Haas cars, having the Haas now is basically the new Williams, it looks like. And they have two new rookie drivers who keep spinning. I think it's kind of showing that Nicholas Latifi is a lot better of a driver than people were initially giving him credit for last season. So, and he was it this weekend that he was ahead of George in quali at one point?
I think, he beat him going into Q2.
Yeah, which I don't think we would have really seen last year. And he made it into Q2 for the second time in his career, which is huge. So I think I'm hopeful for Nicholas Latifi this year. I've heard a lot of people say that you can't ever really count F1 driver's rookie season because those cars are so powerful that a lot of drivers just need a full season to get used to driving that car. And so they're driving it more just to get to the finish line as opposed to trying to make moves. So I think we'll see a lot more of Nicholas Latifi's abilities this year. And I'm excited for that because I think he's already shown great improvement. And then from Lance Stroll, I think there's kind of a similar argument there with he's gotten a bad rep over the years of people saying he's not good enough. And then with his pole position last season and his podiums, I think that really sort of stopped the critics at that point. And now with Sebastian Vettel, 4-time world champion, obviously he's new to the car and Lance Stroll has been driving it for a while, but he's quite outperforming his teammate right now. And I think that's showing a lot of people that Lance Stroll is a lot better of a driver than people give him credit for. So I'm kind of excited for the Canadian drivers this year just to kind of show that they are good F1 drivers. So yeah.
Great. I have one follow-up because you mentioned rookie seasons and getting used to a car. Alex and Adam have been not really criticizing me on this show, but more of my fandom of Alex Albon. And so I'd like to hear more about your thoughts about him and how his first season went.
Well, so fun fact about Alex Albon, his girlfriend is on the LPGA tour.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. So just a nice little crossover. I think Alex Albon just was in the unlucky position of being a Red Bull driver. I think it's kind of almost like a thankless job being in that second Red Bull driver's position. First, we saw it with Danny Kvyat, who got dropped for Max Verstappen. And then we saw it with Pierre, who got replaced by Alex. And then now Alex getting dropped, and he's the reserve driver now. I think Alex Albon is a good driver. And I hope he gets a seat again. But I fear the 1 year at Red Bull might have actually really hurt his chances, because he's stuck in that Red Bull world, and Pierre Gasly is performing amazingly at AlphaTauri, and Yuki Tsunoda has really impressed this year so far, I think. So I don't see a spot in AlphaTauri opening up anytime soon, and that's really all he has left. And I don't see them putting him back in Red Bull as much as I think they'd like to see him back in Red Bull. I honestly feel like Yuki Tsunoda will probably get that spot if it opens up, because I think they're moving on to newer drivers now. I hope for Alex Albon that he's able to use the silly season and pick up a spot at is it Alpine? Is that how they pronounce it?
Yeah.
At Alpine, or just one of those teams, even a Haas, if he can find a spot there or anything. My hope is he can get into a midfield team, because I don't see his career progressing at Red Bull, but I do think he's a good driver, and anybody in that second seat was just not going to look good, because Max Verstappen is so good and has so much experience in that car.
Do you think they picked the right guy in Sergio Perez?
I do. I think the three drivers they were kind of looking at, I definitely think it was the right decision to replace Alex Albon. I think both for Alex Albon and for the team. I think it would be like, I don't know, the Habs putting Cole Caulfield on their top line and being like, well, the whole team's are on your shoulders now, right? It's too much pressure for someone to just start out like that. And so I think it was kind of unfair to Alex Albon to do that. So I think the three people they were kind of whose names were getting tossed around was Vettel, Hülkenberg, and Perez. And I think we all knew Vettel wasn't going back to Red Bull. That just too many issues there, I guess. And then I do think because Perez was driving so great towards the end of last season, that even though Hülkenberg showed great driving when he was called up, he still never got a podium. And as much as you'd like to believe that he could, he doesn't have the facts to back it up. And as great of a driver as he is, he can't, the same way Montreal can't figure out how to win the game by the end of the game, Hülkenberg can't seem to finish the race. And so and Perez won. So I definitely think it was a right decision, and I think he's going to do well. I hope.
Yeah.
By the way, Daniel, we weren't making fun of you for being an Albon fan. We just really, really wanted Perez to still have a seat.
Okay.
Right? It's a bit unfair.
Yeah.
And joke about pressure.
Story,
Sorry?
just that whole story of how he got dropped by what's now Aston Martin, and he was going to be out of seat. Everybody was heartbroken for him.
Mm-hmm.
It was like a great, I guess, story to then get him picked up.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? I feel I do give Netflix a bit of leeway because so much happened in Secure. But you know what? I wish they had more than 10 episodes because I feel like you could have, you know how in like season 1, they stretched the Red Bull stuff through multiple episodes. I felt like you could have maybe done that with Sergio. Like, did we need the Haas episode? I don't think we did. And by the way, you want to talk about pressure? Did you guys know that Quebec's premier talked about how excited he was when Caulfield got called up? The premier crazy. Was like, yeah, here we go, cool. So pressure.
Wow.
Good luck.
Yeah. Just play him. Lara, you have been incredibly gracious with your time. We are terrible with keeping people, at a reasonable time, so we do apologize. But it has been a joy talking to you. Hopefully we can do this again, and we will hopefully talk some more golf. Because you know what? People make fun of it, but if you actually sit down and just watch golf, it's actually really relaxing. I've noticed it's a fun sport to watch. So thank you for coming on. And again, one more time, if you want to just plug all of your stuff, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, thank you for having me. So yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Lara Christine with 2 E's. I have a blog, insidethedrive.ca, and I guess Instagram, which is Lara Kuipers. They're all different names, which is confusing.
It's all right. The real hard worker of the podcast, Alex, will have it all linked. When this is up, we'll send it to you. We will be back in a second. OHL season, not great news. Patrick Marleau stuff. Alex is not happy about the Leafs. And yeah, we will be back. We will be back in a second. Lads, we are back.
We are half David Backus.
Okay. God, your puns. Do you have these written down, or is it just like, it just hits you?
It hits me like always 10 to 15 minutes before the episode.
They just
come up. The creative juices flow when the microphone's on.
Sure.
You should write them down so that you can remember them, and you use them on just keep using them.
Half of them are going to be the episode names, but anyway, lovely talking to Lara. That was a really, really good time. Again, if you're listening, sorry that we took so long of your time. We're sorry. But that was really, that was a lot of fun. Seriously. It was really nice to talk F1 and golf because I started the Masters was the first time I actually went down and watched golf, and it's enjoyable, man. Plus, golf is one of those sports that I've only played putt in that, but I've always wanted to actually play golf because it's fun.
Yeah, I've played it a few times. I think because I have a few friends that are really into it.
Yeah,
that it becomes a bit intimidating where it's like, I don't know these guys. Apparently I kept saying Rory McIlroy for so long, and apparently it's Rory McIlroy. See, these is the things I don't know. Apparently Mike Weir doesn't play anymore. I kept using that one. I make a joke one time. I remember because I just know it from a movie. So there's a famous American golfer named Walter Hagen.
Okay,
but it's from the 1930s.
Oh. Okay.
I would bring him up he's not playing anymore. And
just oh my gosh. When you were in high school, right? So
yeah, when I was in high school.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyway, by the way, I'm not comparing putt golf to real golf. I feel like if Lara hears that, she'll be really no. I'm not. I'm just saying.
So, are you really good at putt golf?
No.
Oh,
I'm not coordinated enough. I don't have the patience to line up. I'm a terrible.
We got to find the right person to come play golf with us.
Yeah,
Michael Jordan.
Because you bet Laura's probably pretty sick and she just embarrass us. We just got to do the 2-on-1 podcast golf tour and get all our guests and just do something nice.
We'll call Mike.
Yeah, 2-on-1 podcast golf tour, and what else did I want to do?
A lot. You know what?
I want to do a meet and greet.
A meeting.
Yes.
Daniel, I don't think this podcast is out of. I think it would just be most our friends from around the school. Anyway,
I mean, it's an excuse to get our friends together.
We do, yeah. Once all this is done, I actually can't see people again.
Pizza meet and greet. There you go.
We do have some bad news to start the show, unfortunately, and that's earlier today, IIHF confirmed that, and I'm reading their tweet from their official account here. The IIHF received confirmation from the province of Nova Scotia that the Women's Worlds in Halifax and Truro will be canceled due to safety concerns associated with COVID-19. The women's game has just been hit really hard by COVID this year. And I do ask the question, can you not move it somewhere else? It sounds like the men's world is going on. I don't exactly know where it is, but I don't think it would be difficult to just relocate because I don't think anyone's gone there yet. I have a lot of questions about that. I'm not going to lie. I feel like we're not trying our hardest to keep the women's worlds right now.
Well, not even just move it. I think you have so many formulas that have proven to work in terms of hosting a bubble or hosting a tournament, that the fact that your first reaction is to cancel it is very odd to me, because it's been done before. You have a proven system, right? It's not the IIHF. They run the World Juniors, right? Yeah,
it's all under that umbrella.
So you did the
They
World
have
Juniors.
the resources. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really, when you put it like that. They dealt the World Juniors. Remember, Sweden were like half done. Remember
Germany, yeah,
and
even Canada. Like all of their, the majority of their cuts were all people who contracted COVID.
Yeah, you asked the questions there. Do a little bit more there. And I do think we'd be a bit remiss if we didn't also mention that Derek Chauvin was found guilty of all 3 charges yesterday in Minnesota. Apparently, the first time a white cop has been charged with all 3 or found guilty. I think Lewis Hamilton tweeted about it. We mention it because we can talk about the NHL's statement about it, but at the same time, you hope that this is more than just a sort of blip, that you hope that this is a real start for real change, I'd say. And at the same time, though, you still think back and say that it is a shame that someone, or that a lot of people have lost their lives. The George Floyd thing should never have happened. Yeah, go ahead. It's not easy to talk about, but we would be awful if we didn't mention it today.
A couple things. Number one, and I even said it myself. I think I sent the text in the group chat yesterday. It wasn't justice. It was accountability.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest. I think that's one of the biggest things. It's not justice. Like, this is someone being held accountable for their wrongdoing. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I know there's going to be people complaining because there's never a situation where 100% of the people are happy. But I think in this case, a very large majority of the people are very happy. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to throw it to Daniel by saying, I also think, guys, that the people who still don't understand that this isn't politics, this is people. I think it used to annoy me. Now it's just like some people just don't get it.
Yeah. I don't know. It was as anything as this was going to be, it was always going to be divisive, especially on social media. The black hole that is Twitter sometimes.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing, and I take from this, is that people were surprised that he was convicted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, when we talk about accountability, it was more of like the shock that they actually got it right this time. That like, after so much deliberation, so much of this coverage and everything, of the other cases that have either not gone to court, the other ones that have had these decisions that really didn't serve any justice, that you get something like this and people can still come out and say, like, I'm still in shock about this. Because me personally, I'm still in shock.
Like, there was a sigh of relief. Like, I had when I found out it was going to be between 4:30 and like 5 o'clock, as soon as 4:30 hit, I'm like, I couldn't watch it live. If they said he was not guilty, I don't know how I would have reacted watching it live. And there was this weird sigh of relief when they found him guilty. But it's like, man, like, it shouldn't be that way.
Exactly. And there's the problem. There is the problem. This was the NHL statement, and I think every team, or I haven't checked all 31 or Seattle 32, but I know the Leafs did. I know the Habs did. NHL, at least, I know is it the Raiders? The Las Vegas Raiders had a weird.
They didn't delete it yet.
With the date saying I can breathe now, I think it was.
The owner doubled down on it.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Kayla Gray's been on it. Like, I don't like. Yeah. She mentioned it. It's just, I don't know what's going on with that.
And Kayla Gray also looked at I think she quoted the NHL statement. I'm going to read it to you here. The National Hockey League statement following today's verdict in Minneapolis. Quote, while we hope the end of the trial offers a chance for healing, we remain committed to actively engaging in the movement for equality, and we invite our fans to join us in supporting systematic change. Now, Adam Silver, I believe in the NBA statement, he himself actually put his voice on it. Like Adam Silver says, this feels like it's the NHL going to a lawyer and saying, give me something this very second. There was nothing from Bettman. I think even each individual team has had statements longer than this. And again, it is an example of the NHL. I don't even want to say being behind, but it gives I am not accusing them of this, but it gives off the impression that they don't care. And this is just something that is required by them to put out there.
I wouldn't even just limit it to length. I think I'd limit it. I'd expand it and say, what is in the statement? Like I just pulled up the NBA and NBPA statement. And just the wording of the statement is so like not aggressive.
Personal.
It's personal, but it's like, it's like the NHL one is just so, it reads like a PR statement.
It's it reminds me of, remember when they didn't really have too many statements of it, and then they decided to not cancel their game, but then like when the other leagues did, and then the next few games they just had on they just had up on like the teleprompters that end racism.
They did like the moment of silence for the 7 p.m. game, and they had nothing for the 10 p.m. game.
Yeah.
They didn't even, there were a lot of problems. Like there were no more video packages talking about it for the rest of the playoffs. The Western teams, every player came out. Remember Jason Dickinson, Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, Kadri, and then the Eastern teams just had their captains speak to the media. And it was like, it's again, not a good look for the NHL. And I want so much better from the league of the sport I love. And they continue to disappoint. Again, it's simple. Please do better. And again,
I think like one final thing I'd like to say about that is when we talk about, and these are just beyond the other things, because I think revenue is just one part of influence when it comes to these major leagues, where the NHL is the type of league where, we've had so many people come onto the show talk about, maybe it's third or fourth on that list. It just, these are the type of ways where, you get connected to what's kind of going on that's bigger than the sport. And in this way, this is how you could kind of connect with the other communities and connect with people.
Exactly. That's a very good point, Daniel. Anything else you guys want to touch on the NHL stuff, the Jared Chauvin stuff? Anyway, like anything else you want to add?
Me, no.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now we got, I swear the rest of the show now will be, I think, some fun hockey stuff. It's a sharp turn, but again, it's a turn nonetheless. I'd say this is kind of, we touched on it with Lara for a second there. Yeah. The OHL season has officially been canceled, and they never took off. You remember when we were arguing about, well, not even arguing, but there was the idea of they're not going to be able to hit. And that was the big thing. And all of a sudden it went really, really quiet because I think we were all just hoping, waiting. Mm-hmm. And now it's done. The Memorial Cup was canceled earlier in the week. And then it just went full AHL because now there's a new stay-at-home order in Quebec and Ontario. The borders are closed around it for, non-essential travel. And what's really, I think the big question here is obviously you feel terrible for these kids, like kids that are going to need to go in, like overagers to go back into the draft aren't going to have a chance. And like, that's the big thing is how in the world are OHL prospects going to be seen and really, how would you say, evaluated going into the draft? I mean, this is, the shockwaves of this are going to be felt for a few years, like a few years, a while, for the foreseeable future from this draft.
Yeah. The two things I kind of got from this, and this kind of attributes to a lot of the notes Bob McKenzie wrote for his draft rankings. And there's two things. The first thing is it's no surprise that you see the top 5, and a lot of them are NCAA players because they had a chance to play 26 games plus the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
And another thing with that is it's just everything. It's a bit of a toss up, and like the what you've mentioned, where these people want to know, like these players, they want to know like what's kind of the direction of these things, like because again, like these rankings mean so much to them. This whole thing about going back the 1 year and like just seeing how things go. It's it's really disappointing to see.
I just went to pull up what did Montreal and Toronto do in terms of drafting this year, because I don't even think it was not just the future, but look at the 2020 draft. Montreal picked two guys out of Canada, obviously Caden Gooley and Jan Mysak from Prince Albert and from Hamilton. And
one thing on Mishak,
yeah,
I think a majority of his he was Hamilton, right?
correct.
Sorry, let me double check. There's a bit of a thing with Mishak, but yeah, sorry, go on. Yeah.
And I look at Toronto, they picked two guys out of Canada, one being William Villeneuve from St. John's, and then Ryan Tverberg, but he's in the OJHL for the Toronto Junior Canadiens. Like, I think it's being seen, like, from the teams that we follow, that the missed Memorial Cup and like the back half of the season did play an impact. And knowing that next year, the US is going to have hockey, Europe is going to have hockey, and Canada and the CHL was in such a, it was such a divide between are we having a season, are we not having a season, that it was even impacted this year.
Yeah, like, go on, Adam.
No, I just wanted to quickly see, and Mishak, who he was actually kind of lucky because he actually split his 1920 season. He played in the OHL with the Bulldogs. He also played in the Czech League. I'm not going to say this right because it's the Czech League, but with Litvinov HC. Go on, Daniel. So
yeah, actually excellent setup for what I was about to say, because a big point of it from a lot of these reporters, one day I hope that we get to do this where it's like a scout said, we didn't even have to say the name, it's like one scout told me, but a lot of it is even the players that have been drafted already in terms of their development, where because of the pandemic it's like, hey, hold on, you're not going back to the team you knew already, you're not staying in Ontario, you're not staying where you've developed your game, we're sending you to Europe. Like, and it's been a big thing because one is, and Bob McKenzie said it too, it's like once you go past maybe the top 15, it's a crapshoot now, because you'll rank these guys, but it's like you rank them based on the team he was familiar with, or how he played. Like, for example, he was a first line center a year and a half ago, and then now you put him in a men's league at 18, 19, and he's playing like third, fourth line minutes, and it's just like hard to kind of know. Or even when he talks about the goalie ranking, some of these goalies haven't played all year, and it's just, you just don't know. And I don't know if this has to do with it, but you'll see two goalies, for example, Jesper Wallstedt is supposed to go in the top 15. He's a top 10 goalie on Bob McKenzie's list, but again, it's just like you compare him with, like, I think it was Marco Kosas. I might have gotten that name wrong, but he's the Canadian goalie that's supposed to go the first round too. But that guy's never played, like, he's barely played this year.
Right.
As if it wasn't difficult enough for goalies to really get draft attention. Just cut their season. Okay, Alex, I need you to explain to us what this Super League thing that isn't really looking like it's happening, but like, what is this?
It's not happening. Yeah. This is the best way I could put it. Okay. Imagine in the NHL, the original 6 teams decided, hey, we're going to break off. We're still going to be part of the NHL, but we're going to have our own competition where where we get all the money and like the TV rights, it's all ours. And to be honest, no one's going to really care about like the NHL. That's my best way of putting it in terms of hockey.
Okay.
But it's a little different because the way European soccer works is a little, it's very different. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to take the North American model and bring it to Europe. And the European fans are having absolutely none of it, because in Europe, there's relegation, there's promotion, right? So there's the Premier League, and then there's, why can't I remember what the next one down? Like there's the second tier, third tier goes down.
Yeah.
And you can move up and down depending on how good you are and et cetera, and different things. What they're trying to do would honestly, I think, destroy the reputation of these clubs, because no one, like, it already has. And I want to be clear. When I'm talking about these teams, I'm not talking about the players. I'm not talking about the managers. I'm not talking about their scouts. I am talking about their billionaire owners. Okay. Because the players don't like it. The managers don't like it. Like, the two biggest managers in the world, in my opinion, Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, have spoken out about the Super League.
Jurgen Klopp,
yeah.
So, and what it is so it's these like massive teams. So like
yes,
Juventus, Man City, Man United, Tottenham, Harry Kane, like, guy, how are you? Like Barcelona, the big guys.
Yeah, the biggest clubs in the world.
So,
but haven't won really much in recent years, to be honest.
Okay.
So basically like half the Canadian teams in the NHL.
Right.
Or all of them for 6 years. So it would basically, the way I understand this, and I am embarrassed that I am English born. I'm not a big soccer guy. Yeah. Is you would then destroy the prestige. And basically, I would assume with that, then the money associated with, again, like every other league would just go, it would disappear. Like a rabbit out of a hat, it's gone.
Well, I believe this was actually the biggest one when it was signed, the biggest TV rights package, around $4 billion.
Wow.
Was the Premier League. I don't remember how long, over what period of time, but it's very big. Like, it's huge.
Was the NHL's? Hold on.
The NHL's is nothing. And what this would do, in my opinion, would the Super League, because of the size of the clubs, not necessarily because of how good they are, but because of their international reputation, would probably get a bigger package than what the Premier League had gotten, because you're taking comes from England, Spain, Italy, the biggest clubs in Europe, and putting them together, which then, okay, like, where's the money now for the Premier League? Where's the money now for Serie A? Where's the money for Ligue 1? Where's the money for the Bundesliga? Like, it's going to be non-existent. And to be honest, like, I think the fans care about earning your spot. And I know in recent history, these teams probably have spent more money than like the NHL could ever imagine.
Yeah.
Like, a player was moved from one club to another for 250 million euros a few years ago.
Wow.
That's like 3 salary caps.
By the way, so around $4 billion for that TV deal. The NHL's new one is worth $625 million.
Does it even
there you go.
$25 million. What was I was thinking of something for a second there. And naturally, because of this, UEFA and FIFA are mad.
Yeah, of course.
Which, by the way, and when I was talking to Alex about this last night, and I just said to him, you know who I feel bad for here? And beside the fans, obviously. Daniel, do you know what I said?
What did you say?
I said no one. Because I don't feel bad for the millionaires, the billionaires, and I certainly do not feel bad for FIFA.
No. The second most corrupt organization in the world, behind the IOC.
So we're not buying FIFA anymore, guys.
Well, that's an EA game. I'm not going to buy it anyway.
We're buying Pro Evolution Soccer now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you brought UEFA and FIFA up there, and there's 2 points I want to bring up there. Number one is, there is no good guy in this situation. Like, I think that's more than clear. It should be, because I see a lot of guys saying, well, if you don't have the Super League, you're just going back to UEFA, which they're also like corrupt. But there's no good guy. It's just you either go to one bad guy or you go the other bad guy. And to be honest, the UEFA and FIFA are the better bad guy in this scenario, because you're not fully ruining everything else.
So what's an example of that? Like Daniel Craig, James Bond, because he's kind of an anti-hero.
I don't know if I have a good example of that.
I've never seen the 007 movie, so
oh my gosh, really?
No, never have.
I'm sorry. I don't have a good analogy for that one.
I just remember when they came out, the 60s ones.
But the second thing is, and it's the last thing I have to say at least. I do feel really bad for the players. I know this isn't going to end. This Super League's not going through. All 6 English clubs have pulled out. The Italian teams are starting to pull out. Like, this is just gone. Like, it's all but gone. But UEFA and FIFA were going to ban these players from playing in the Euros and in the World Cup. And I had this conversation with Adam yesterday. I'm very well aware of what it means to wear the Canadian, the leaf on your jersey in the Olympics or the World Cup of hockey. But we are talking about the biggest sporting event worldwide. Like, there's the Super Bowl, and then there is the World Cup. I was looking, there are 1 billion people who watch the World Cup final. 1 billion, right? Like, when you think like playing for soccer players, I think playing for your country means so much, because in Europe and in South America, it is you are beloved if you win. You are like it. I don't know if it would be the exact same here, because I just don't know if the popularity is here. But when Italy won the World Cup, Woodbridge was insane.
Maybe we saw each other in the crowd, Alex.
Like,
maybe we like before this whole time we saw each other in the crowd of Woodbridge.
Like, they won the semifinals. It might have been the quarterfinals. And I went to Fortino's, which is a grocery store in Woodbridge. There's a few locations.
Italian Walmart.
Yeah. And there were people driving on Highway 7 and just slamming their horns, guys standing outside of their sunroof. Like when you stand and half your body's outside the sunroof. Yeah. They were doing that. Okay. Like, that's the quarterfinals. They hadn't even won yet.
What is the next World Cup or Euro Cup?
Well, the Euros was supposed to be last year, and now it's supposed to be this summer. And then the World Cup is next summer.
So can we expect to see you in a sunroof wearing Azura blue?
If Italy win, maybe.
Okay.
And it's safe to do so, obviously, because of COVID.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have it sorted out by then. Another year, Doug? Maybe?
Maybe. Okay, there's another thing too. Maybe when these things come up, Adam and I will be better when it comes to talking about soccer or football.
Sure, if you want.
Okay, so last episode we talked about Patrick Marleau tying the games played record, Gordy Howe's. He's now broken it. So apparently there were some tweets about this that people got upset about. Somehow I have not seen them. I have made sure not to see them. I saw that on 31 Thoughts that Elliot and Jeff were talking, are like friends of the show. I skipped that. I was listening to the Steve Dangle podcast. I saw it. I skipped it. So what are these tweets? And like I have some things about the WHA because I heard that there was some stuff about that, but like, what is this? What were these tweets? So
they're from our two. One of them is, I can't think of more of a favorite reporter of mine the Leafs. So there was an argument going around, and I think it was honestly the worst day to have the argument. And it's not about what he said. Like, we can have an argument about whether Patrick Marleau should be in the Hall of Fame or not. Like, that's a separate discussion, unrelated to what was happening on this day. It's the timing of the tweets.
It was a discussion? Okay, sorry. Go on. Yeah.
No, it was just that there was a discussion on Twitter. Like, when the cesspool of Twitter starts a discussion.
Okay.
And then it gets built up. So this is Steve Simmons' tweet. Hart Trophies 1. Gretzky 9, Howe 6, Shore 4, Ovi, Lemieux, or Clark Morans all 3. Marleau once finished 9th in Hart voting, which is true, but it's not the point, Steve. It's just, why are you doing it on this day? Why?
Because he wants the clicks. Also,
I know.
This happened a few years ago too, but it's not at this extent because it's Marleau still playing. But I'll give another example of who is someone that he is in the Hall of Fame, but he never really had the individual awards either. And that's Dave Andrzejczyk. And he's been someone too who's been known for longevity. He's the one who, doesn't always have those huge point seasons, but he is certainly someone where when you think about it, it's like, okay, yeah, like what he's been able to do over his career, he deserves to be there. But I don't know, that's a weird argument because I don't know, that's, like the straw man argument, where like, of course you're going to start with Gordy Howe and Wayne Gretzky and then like gonna go like down, like go even like lower to it. Like it's not, it does like these like weird comparisons that they just shouldn't be made.
Hey there, here's the best player of all time and the best player before him, and let's compare Patrick Marleau. Like, listen, you need to really think about what it means to play a game in the NHL and what that takes in your life. Then you have to think about doing it more than any other person. And this thing about his games played in the WHA, do you want to know who the leading scorer in WHA? But this was, for those of you who don't know, this was a league to rival the NHL in the 70s. It didn't last a decade. You want to know who the leading scorer in WHA history was?
Wayne Gretzky.
No, he didn't play in it.
I thought he did.
Did he? I don't know if he did.
I don't know. Okay, I apologize.
Wayne Gretzky.
Who was it? I'll search it up, and then you just tell me who it was.
Andre Lacroix.
Oh, yeah.
He had 798 points and 251. Those are goals. 798 points. I can't see his games played. God damn it. Oh, no, I have it on Hockey DB. Okay, so in 551 games played in the WHA, he had 547 points. That's pretty good. His NHL totals, he had 198 points in 325. Gordy Howe played in the twilight of his career. Now, when he came back to play, I think it was that last season in Hartford, Daniel? He still had like 40 points. Gordy Howe, ladies and gentlemen, is seventh all-time in WHA scoring of 508 points, 4 more than his son at this point in his career. They are not comparable leagues. His WHA stuff does not mean a thing. And so what if he left? Yager left. He could have done this and could have scored so many goals, and he'd be at 2,000 points right now. He didn't. I think did Yager break 2,000?
No, he didn't. He's almost there, but I don't, because he's still technically playing. Like,
we've had this argument before. This could have happened. Well, it didn't. Like, why do we have to take it away from Patrick Marleau? I don't get it. Like, I hate using this term. I think it's overused sometimes. Have some respect.
Oh, well, there's one more tweet, by the way.
Okay.
Gretzky did play in the WHA. He had, in 80 games, he had 46 goals and 110 points.
When was this?
870, 879.
Before Edmonton got him, yeah.
I was going to say, was this the Oil Kings then?
It was, so I think he was first with the Indianapolis Racers, and then he was in that same year. I don't know if he was traded or not. He was claimed in an intra-league draft by Edmonton, and he played the rest of the season with the Edmonton Oilers. And
a reminder that the Oilers were then absorbed into the NHL. And that's why Wayne was never drafted.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Calm down, people. Like, calm down about, whatever.
I always had this too, like when people had that argument, with wins and, shootouts and like records, it really affected me too when they had that debate about, there's no more ties.
Whatever.
The second tweet is from Rosie DiMano of the Toronto Star. Milt Dunnell wrote 11,000 columns for the Star. I'll never catch him. But if I were to reach 10,999, I'd stop. There's much to admire about.
Whoa! Hold on. Restart that.
So Milt Dunnell, I'm assuming he was a columnist for the Toronto Star, wrote 11,000 columns for the Toronto Star, which is a lot of columns, by the way.
That's a lot. Yeah.
If I'll never catch him. This is her writing the tweet, by the way. I'll never catch him. But if I were to reach 10,999, that is one before 11,000, I'd stop. There's much to admire about Patrick Marleau as a hockey player and as a human being. Not this. Respect.
Yep.
Okay, all right, hold on a minute. So this person is mad because Patrick Marleau continues to play hockey
Correct.
and continue to do the thing he's loved,
Correct.
the thing he's been amazing at for so many years.
Correct.
You know, to the point where he is still at this age considered a useful player, even at like
Correct.
41, he is still good. Obviously not 20 goals anymore, but like she's saying,
Yeah.
well, sorry, wasn't
Her, yes.
She's saying that. Okay. So here's the thing I hate about stuff like this is, can we just leave Gordy Howe alone? Like, rest in peace, my man. Do we have to like bring him out to just be like, you know what Patrick Marleau doesn't have? Respect because he played NHL games. Are you serious?
We're also not going to forget about Gordy Howe. Like,
He's one of the best. He's a top 5 player of all time.
Yeah.
That's not a debate. Like, are you serious?
His name is literally Mr. Hockey.
He's Wayne Gretzky's favorite player. What are you doing? He defined an entire like one of the first. I never shut up about this. In Bobby Orr's book, like Gordie Howe is like deitized in it. What a bad take. That's awful.
I mean,
that's awful.
There's always these records that are in, like, even in hockey or other sports where I think if it wasn't for the games or if it wasn't for someone, I don't know, who has passed on, it wouldn't be the same debate. Like, for example, a lot of records have really been broken like the last 10 years in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing like this. Like, you know, Steph Curry, you know, out of respect for Reggie Miller and Ray Allen, stop shooting your 3-pointers. Or again, and I've said it as a joke, but it's a real meaningful thing. When Martin Brodeur broke the winning record, Patrick Waugh was at his game.
It's like Gretzky wants Ovechkin to break his goal scoring record.
What's the point of having records if they can't be if you shouldn't break them? Isn't that a quote? Isn't that like a really good quote?
Yeah, if
like
records are meant to be broken.
Yeah.
Like LeBron James is literally in the top 3 or top 5 of every single like record right now because he just keeps on playing. And, you know, it's not like he's undermining Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, like John Stockton or anything.
He's not he's not at the top of his game, but it's not like he's playing just to play. This isn't like bringing a guy back and playing him again. Like, it's not him coming back and saying, you know what, I just want to beat the record to beat the record. I don't
Patrick
think that's
Marleau no, Alex. He's spitting on Gordie Howe's grave, apparently.
I've never met Patrick Marleau. I've only heard outside accounts from the team when he was here, but he doesn't seem like the type of guy to do something just for the sake of doing it. I really do think, why would he want to play? Like, what was the point of him re-signing with San Jose during a pandemic? Instead, he could sit in his house in San Jose and live his life and do whatever he wants. But no, he wanted to beat Gordie Howe's record to prove a point.
That's seriously, Alex. That's one of the worst tweets that has ever existed on hockey Twitter, sports Twitter. That's bad. Okay. Do we want to finish off by covering the Leafs quickly?
Sure.
I am upset about that game.
I'm getting really mad about
yesterday.
Every time I hear. I'm getting like seriously sick and tired that all season I keep hearing the excuse of you getting goalied, and then it just feels like. Well, like that freaking happens, right? And there was a tweet, I can't remember if it was Myrtle or something, but pointing out that the Leafs losing streak is based on goaltending and like a passing thought. Like David Rittich was not great last night. Like on the viewing party on the FaceTime, it was Alex, Mike, and I, because like Daniel, don't ever come to they're terrible.
It's terrible.
You're too good of a person.
I'm just excluded. I'm kidding.
No.
I'm
kidding.
They're open, man.
They're in the group chat. All you gotta do is click join. Okay. No exclusion.
He doesn't like us.
Second time this episode, he's thrown us under the bus.
No, because I'm trying to encourage Mike to finish his business assignment.
Yeah, that's true. He's not gonna. He's just instead being very upset watching the Leafs play. Rittich was not great. Jack Campbell has been coming down to earth a bit. I don't know where you guys would like to start. Is this our first episode since Hyman got hurt?
Yes.
Yeah,
because
I think
they played Sunday, and
yes,
it was later after we recorded.
We should.
Yeah.
Sorry, go. No.
Just the one thing before we get into like the meaty stuff is I'm just upset because I wanted Adam Brooks' goal to be the game-winning goal.
Of course you did.
See?
Well, if David Rittich could stop something like that, those were
because his equipment's not matching. That's the problem.
The second Pearson goal, I think that was the one that did Rittich think it was going high and it somehow then went off like his pad that wasn't fully down? It wasn't great.
I don't know.
Adam Brooks hurt us. Talk about his contract.
I'm
like
very upset.
Did we criticize this? What is his contract? Like a year, $700K?
He's making like league min.
Oh my God.
Tanner Pearson?
No, Tanner Pearson. No. You said Adam Brooks.
Oh yeah.
No, Tanner Pearson. Like the goals were coming because we criticized his contract.
Oh, you know what's really funny? On the FaceTime, I said to Alex, we really need to stop criticizing players or stuff. And Alex is like, why? And I'm like, man, he just scored again. I think because you're for some reason your TV is delayed from Mike and I's. So I
don't know why.
By the time I think I had mentioned it to you, I think you had, here's Pearson.
How long is the delay?
Like 20 seconds. It's ridiculous.
Well, that's long.
I have Rogers and it's Sportsnet.
So we should probably mention, by the way, the Leafs lost back-to-back games against the Canucks. Holtby was pretty good, by the way, which is pretty great to see. The power play is still a bit. It was scoring last night, but it only got one on the 5-minute major in the first game. So would you like to talk about the goaltending to start here, guys? Do you want to just talk about this little streak? I mean, we also need to touch on Zach Hyman. Where would you like to start?
I'd like to talk about Vancouver for a second because I'd like to applaud them for how well they played. I'm dead serious. I am dead serious. I'm dead serious because I think they maybe, of course, my following on Twitter, like the people I follow on Twitter are mainly Leaf stuff. So I didn't get to see the reaction from Vancouver with the exception of I follow Harman Dial, follow Thomas Durant's, friend of the show, Thomas Durant's. I think we should give them a round of applause because they deserved yes, I don't think maybe their performance was their best performance, but they still played damn well considering they all just came back from a lot of them having COVID and quite a few of them having more than just mild symptoms.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I'd like to do first. And
okay.
And when we can move on to whatever you guys want.
So Zach Hyman will be out for a few weeks. It's a sprained MCL?
I believe so, yes, yeah. MCL.
The knee, yeah.
Good that it is not as long because that's the same knee he got surgery on a couple of years ago.
Correct.
Edler got a few games for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was fair. Because, listen, we've talked about plenty of suspensions that did not happen on the show. So it's good to actually see.
Tyler Myers.
I guess first, there are certain times that you'd kind of hope when the big hit happens. It's a bit cavemanish, but it's part of hockey, and it's something you look out for. No one kind of standing up for Hyman. I don't know if this is a thing of, it's the Canucks. I don't know if there was that thing of, let's not go after them. They're COVID. It sucks. It's bad for them. But, that's Zach Hyman, guys. Why were there – again, it sounds so stupid to say if you're not a hockey fan, but where was Wayne Simmons trying to punch a man?
I mean, it was quite clear that even the guys on the bench knew that it was bad. Why? Because it happened in front of the bench.
I think it was like Spezza and it was Spezza and Simmons were right there, and they stood up right away like, what is this?
And I want it was a dirty play. I think fatigue did have something to do with it. I don't think anyone intentionally does a knee-to-knee hit, right? Like, because it could turn out bad on your side. So yes. But I do think it should have been suspended. I'm glad it was. I have been sold this year on the idea that you brought in these guys and someone is going to stick up for your teammate when something bad happens. And since their last kind of skid, I have not seen that at all. And there's been like 3 different incidences. And I'm kind of getting fed up that I'm sorry, the guys who are supposed to be doing things aren't contributing in any other way. Joe Thornton hasn't scored in 16 games. The last time he got a point was in early March.
I didn't think that was that long. Wow.
Wayne Simmons hasn't had a point in 6 games. A little bit better. Better than 15. But do something, man. Like, I saw Justin Hall earlier this season pull a guy off Freddie. You can do it. I know you can. So do something.
It's ironic because if it wasn't any other player, I'd assume Hyman's that type of guy where you expect him to get into that scuffle.
Yeah.
Yes. To get into the face of the person that hit your own teammate. And for me, it was a situation where we talk so much about the Leafs and the added grit and the accountability that has been there with the team this year. But it was another thing where it's just something of the past where I don't know why there wasn't more of, a retaliation in a way to keep things, as they are. That the one thing I kind of felt with it was, I don't know, it just, this is not how you build energy. This is not how you build camaraderie when, one of the guys that it's just been so effective for you in the lineup goes down like this and you don't have someone responding to it.
Mm-hmm. Accountability is something I think we've really talked about more and more over the last few shows. Mm-hmm. And you know what? At some point, I know Joe Thornton can still dish a decent pizza here. But I don't really think if you're down by 2 goals and you've got 3 minutes left that Joe Thornton, even if you're trying to rest Matthews or that, I don't think he should be out there.
No.
I still don't get why I'm seeing Simmons in that net front. Because remember when Nashville picked up Wayne Simmons and they had that god-awful power play, it didn't work there. There's proof that it doesn't work. And I think you need to, it's kind of weird to say, I think you need to get a bit more creative on the power. It worked last night. It did. But I still don't get how you have a Tavares. You don't have Tavares from Nylander stapled there.
See, I think it's actually the opposite. I think they're getting too creative. I think they're remember the thing last year, just with the team in general, is that they're always looking for the extra pass. It's always the skill points. It's always, how do I look cooler? Screw that. The point of bringing Wayne Simmons, Zach Bogosian, Joe Thornton, and these guys in who had damn experience was so that you didn't do this stuff over and over and over and over again.
You know who were guilty
Sorry for getting
that?
upset.
The year that Tampa won 62, they were guilty of the extra pass.
Yeah.
And then what did they do to fix it?
Okay. I thought you were about to mention the playoffs. I was I was going to go.
The playoffs, but again, adversity. Yeah, the playoffs with that, the adversity, too much skill, and then what did they do? They balance it out.
I hate Tampa Bay.
I can't figure out what's the issue with the power play because it is the 4th straight year where you have a coach or assistant coach who really gets the team going. And then it disappears. You saw it last year with Paul McFarland, or you're seeing it this year with Manny Malhotra, where I thought, man, that power play looks good. They're doing things right. Last year, you had Paul McFarland, who had it go. It was a slow start. slow start, but got it going, and then it fizzled off at the end. And the 2 years before that, you had Jim Hiller, who I think now is in Nashville, who had the power play going for a little bit of time, and then it fizzled out. So what is like, I can't figure out what the issue seems to be here, because I'm sorry, it can't be the coach unless you just magically haven't found the perfect coach.
I'm having flashbacks. That's exactly what happened with Alex Burrows in Montreal. It's like, get here, good power play. Now it sucks again. And
Yeah.
it makes zero.
The consistency issue. I don't know. It's something there.
Speaking of consistency, goaltending is a weird thing. I love goaltenders. We all do. Though there is a note here, and I think it is a serious question. The thing of really like the bandwagon with the goalies, Campbell is coming down to earth. I think now people are. You gotta there's a point with certain players that you finally kind of realize you're missing them. And I feel like right now, Leafs fans could probably be missing Freddie Anderson. And what I mean by that, and this is something Alex pointed out to me last night, a healthy Freddie Anderson. Because I think like Campbell might be playing hurt apparently. Rittich has not looked great. And Freddie, we have no idea what it is. Some people have been talking about soft tissue, but
you know what this team could really use right now?
John Gibson.
That too. A healthy Frederik Andersen.
Yes.
Like there is, I don't think should be a debate about this. The best goaltender on this team, when they are all healthy, is Frederik Andersen. I don't care what you have to say about the playoffs, because let's be honest, the players up front were not performing. Game 6 against Boston, the players were not performing. You
have to get there too, by the way.
And
you have to get to the playoffs.
Correct. You have to get there first. I'm a fan of Jack Campbell. Do not get me wrong. I love his 11-game winning streak. But to automatically jump on the bandwagon and say he is the future, this and that. I thought when David Riddick was traded to the Leafs, I thought, well, there it is. Frederik Andersen's not going to play again for the Leafs, because I thought they got a better goaltender than what reality would tell us. But at the end of the day, the best goaltender on this team will be Frederik Andersen.
Yeah, I agree. Like, he's shown the most. I know that it's a great story, the Jack Campbell story with everything. But I think a big thing is we always have to forget that he's already 28, 29, that he's not that much younger than Frederik Andersen. And when they talk about like the future with things, it's just like that pedigree you've mentioned, where Freddie has played a lot for the Leafs. And I think that you put everything together this year, if all three of them were healthy, like that's amazing. That's like the best depth that he's been given since his Anaheim days. And when you mentioned John Gibson again, Frederik Andersen brought those Duck teams with like a Victor Fask or a John Gibson backing him up.
You know what's really funny, Dan? Sorry, before you keep going there. Yeah. Before you got onto the Zoom call, and before we had Lara on, like Daniel and Alex and I were talking about like what's the best tandem Freddie's had. I was just like John Gibson. It's the last time he Sorry, and continue. Yeah, I just wanted to point out
it's that kind of thing where it's just like he's played a ton of games, and I the one thing that just kind of irks me in a way is that like I don't want people to forget that the success he did have when this team reemerged, that he came in and he played those many games without always the best backups with him, or the type of goalies that they only really played during the back-to-backs. And I really think that I really hope he's okay, because I honestly think that like he's kind of the key if the Leafs really want to go on a run.
Mm-hmm. Who used to say that? That's saying that the Leafs will go as far as Frederik Andersen takes them. It might be CJ. I think might have said that on an SPP or something.
It's true.
Like, believe it or not, goaltending is pretty important.
You brought up the Myrtle tweet, and I think the reason it's I get we'll say brushed under the rug in Toronto is because it's always been the issue.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the issue for 5 years. That's the point. That's the point I was making before, like about who was Freddie's best partner. It's been it's probably Jack Campbell, and he's had him for like what, less than a calendar year, and you had Curtis McElhaney for 3 months.
Yes, think of it like this too, right? Like, Jack Campbell. You can always think of like we don't have many true number one 60+ games goalie left.
No.
You know, I think the only one really left now, maybe Binnington and Hellebuck. Because that is I kind of like forgot about him. But you know, like Fleury's a good one, but now Leonard, Jake Allen finally with Carey Price is going to balance that out. If Jack Campbell is just at his best, the 1B, is that really a bad thing? Can we just accept it's the typical overreaction that, listen, he's not 11-0 good. He's not 893 save percentage bad. He could just solid be a 910, 915 in a normal season playing maybe 35 games.
Yeah, go on, Alex.
No, and that's the thing. I never understood people jumping off the Freddie wagon, or going to jump on the Campbell bandwagon. I get he has struggled. We know his patterns. He doesn't start, like, he has a slow start. And then if you play him continuously, he's going to burn out at the end of the season. The same way that Carey Price burns out at the end of the season when you're playing him 70 games. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just the reality. And going out and getting Campbell was probably a great move Kyle Dubas made. But to now say, starting next year, that it's going to be Jack Campbell and someone else, I don't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm. It feels like a bit of a step back. And I'm not saying because Jack Campbell's a bad goalie. It's just, again, what you said, curbed expectations. Because when you look at his career, like he looked like he was going to be a superstar, like coming out of the U.S. National League Development Program, and then he also played in the OHL. But like, listen, like this is a guy that's gone through like three major surgeries in his career, and he's someone where we don't know if he's playing hurt right now. And to kind of have that narrative where it's like we're gonna run with him because he did go 11-0, but it's at the same time it's what a lot of the sports analysts said as well on Twitter, and it's been like this is gonna come back down to earth eventually. And it's just going to all be about like, how do you really bounce back from those losses more than what's going on when things are, at the highest of high.
There is one, we can finish it off here. There is one solution that I can see that really helped the Leafs down the stretch.
What's that?
I think from what we've seen so far, that Michael Hutchinson is a better option right now than David Rittich.
No.
Yes.
I couldn't disagree more.
Oh my gosh.
And with that, we will finish off the podcast. It was a good show. Again, thank you to Lara for coming on. It was a lot of fun. We talked about a lot today. We talked about some baseball, some basketball, some soccer, some F1, some golf. We covered a lot of bases today. A lot of bases. If you enjoyed this episode of the show, be sure to check out the YouTube portion, see all our beautiful faces. My hair, it's amazing. It really is. What's that look for?
Me?
Yeah. What was that?
I was smiling. You said, look at our beautiful faces.
Oh, okay. I thought you were taking the piss out of my hair. And I'm like, man.
No, no.
These locks, it's great stuff.
Is it tied at the back today?
I've been tying and untying it all day, to be honest with you, because you know how I hate sitting for too long. It's just I get fidgety.
Depends on when you watch The Karate Kid. I understand. Yes.
Daniel Sutton. Thank you to Voice Ed for always as being a fantastic platform for the show. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you listen to your show. Check out my YouTube channel, Daniel Stuff for the Hockey Writers, and The Eye Opener, Alex's blog, all that good gubs. And we will check out our own personal social medias and all of Lara's stuff. Most importantly, that's it. Happy birthday to the Queen. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.